Hi, welcome to this session on SandStorm Recorder. In this session, we'll see how to use the SandStorm Recorder for recording a use case in a web-based application. So let's go ahead and open our recorder. And during the course, we'll also see how we can parameterize a use case and perform various operations with your recorded test case. So let's start with the recording. You simply hit the record test script button, give some name to your test script, and then you're good to go. The recorder component would provide you an option of selecting the internet browser. So let's select that. And since it's good to clear the cache and the cookies before recording any use case with an automated load testing tool, here we have an option to clear that from the recorder itself. So let's do that and move on. So once your browser is ready for a recording, let's give a name to our transaction, first transaction, and supply the application URL. So here you can see as you entered the application URL, your homepage got loaded, and in the recorder, you see these various requests which have got captured. So let's go ahead and perform another transaction or another activity in your use case, if you like to call it that way. And you perform one more transaction, and you can see the requests in the second transaction have also got captured. So in the similar way, you can continue performing various transactions in your use case and complete your use case recording. Once you're done with the entire flow, you simply have to stop the recording. And the recorder component would again pop up and provide you an option of searching for the dynamic parameters and would auto correlate them for you. So let's do that. The next thing you need to do is provide a name to your test case. And then you're good to proceed. We'll come back on this debug run later on. So let's finish this for now. And this is how your recorded test case would look like. So on the left hand side, you can see here you have the transactions. And on the right hand side, there is a description window. So for example, if you click on any of the requests, then on the right hand side, you can see the various request headers and the parameters, the recorded response, etc. So for example, in this request, these are the different request headers, the parameters which go along with your request, the content, and the recorded response. Now, while all this communication is captured by the SandStorm recorder tool, the logs are maintained in the SandStorm installation directory. So you can always refer to your recording logs later on as well in case you need them to do some manual parameterization. So those logs, they are stored in the recording directory. And here you can find those logs available. Okay, so coming back to the recorded use case. Now, the next and foremost thing you may want to perform is you may want to execute this with multiple users. And to be able to do so, you would have to use parameterization techniques. So in SandStorm, there are three different ways of handling your parameters. One is from the UI. And to do so, let's take an example. So here we have the parameter username, and we want to parameterize this, change this with variable values at runtime. So to do so, you have to go to the SandStorm variable manager. You can go to the variable manager either from the menu bar, or you can directly access it from the shortcut key over here. So now you need to create a new variable. So let's say the new variable is username, and then you can select the values for this username from these different sources. So in this case, I'm selecting it from a file, but you can always select it from the response of a previous request or replace it with a constant, write your own formula, etc. So these are your different data files, and you can select a file name which has all the user IDs mentioned here, and then you can simply save this variable. Now we need to change the value for the login variable. So to do so, you go to the value for login, and then you launch the variable picker, select the variable name, and then simply select to replace it. As soon as you do this, you can see this variable value got changed, and now this variable value would be used throughout your test case execution. So this was one way of parameterizing your dynamic parameters. One more way to do so is with the use of a JavaScript. So to use a JavaScript, you select the request on which you want to apply the JavaScript, and then you have an option of inserting a JavaScript. So here you can see the SandStorm tool provides an editor to write your own JavaScripts. And on the right hand side, you can see the list of various APIs which you can use in your JavaScript for execution. So usage of these APIs is really simple. You can just drag and drop these requests into your editor, and the recorder component, it would expand that API for you, and you can use this API in your JavaScript to handle the dynamic parameters. So that was one way of doing this. For now, let's remove this. The third option of handling the dynamic parameters is using dynamic request modifiers or the DRM files. So these DRM files are nothing but Java classes which you can use for modifying your variables, and you can use all the APIs which are available in your JavaScript, the same APIs you can use in your Java classes to modify your request parameters. Besides this, there are a lot of other things which you can do with your test case. So for example, you can mark the transaction in case you forgot to mark any transaction while recording. You can mark the transactions once your test case is ready. So for that, all these options are available on the right click. So on the request, if you perform a right click, these are the different options which you can do with the request. So you can mark a transaction, just name the transaction, and the transaction would encapsulate the request on which you want to apply this. Similarly, you can insert loops for repetitive execution of a particular request. So simply click on insert loop and then provide a loop value. And on applying it, you can see the request gets encapsulated within the loop, and this would be executed as many number of times as the number of loop. Similarly, you can insert think times. So these can be used for making your test case look more realistic, because in absence of a think time, there would be a lot of concurrent load on the server, and which would not be realistic. So just simply select the option of inserting the think time, provide a value for the think time, and this think time would be inserted before the transaction or the request where you selected to insert this. Apart from think times, you can also insert a rendezvous point or add comment into your test case to make it look more realistic. Then we have something called as a response parser. So let's see how this is used. So if you select a response parser, then what you can do is from the recorder itself, you can apply various text checks into your test script. So you can select a pattern, or you can select a start and end delimiter, and you can evaluate your response based on this pattern. A similar thing can be found if we go to your recorded response, and then you have this response evaluator. So here you can apply various text checks on your requests, and you can see if the response contains a particular value or a particular pattern, then you can take a suitable action. This comes really handy when you have to validate your load pages based on certain text content on them. So all the options which are available on the right click for request and the transactions are also available on the menu bar here. So you can use these various options. Now let me go ahead and show you another use case which I've already recorded for this demo purpose. So this is my test case, a complete end-to-end use case. So here I have some think times which I just demonstrated how to insert. Then I've added some comments in my test case to make it more readable for any other user to use this. And once your parameterization and your test case configuration is complete, you are good to execute this with a single user, which normally you would call as a debug run, because as a part of this run, you're trying to debug and validate your test case, whether it's running correctly or not. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see that the requests got fired one by one, and here is the execution log of your test case. Here is the debug report with all the transactions, their pass, fail status, etc. And here you have the response renderer. So if you select any request, then the corresponding response would be rendered in the form of an HTML page. On the right hand side, you can see that this is the request which was executed. And here is its HTTP response. So this way you can debug your different test cases from the recorder itself before you actually decide to load it with multiple users. In the test case, you have option of inserting these various objects, but besides this, you also have option of inserting the various other requests. For example, you can manually insert the HTTP request, you can insert a SOAP or XML request, and you can also insert a request for testing your NoSQL clients. We'll cover the NoSQL clients in a different tutorial, but let's see how you can insert an HTTP request. So here, once you hit the insert HTTP request, you need to provide the IP address or the name of the server along with the entire path and the method, which could be a get or a post, along with the protocol. And you can also add your request parameters here. So simply you have to name your request parameter and you have to add them. So this is one handy feature which is pretty much useful when you want to manually insert some requests which are not captured in your recording. So this was all about the SandStorm recorder. Hope you enjoyed the session. And should you have any questions on how to use the recorder component, you can always send us an email, and we'll try and help you with your problems. Thank you very much.